from over Tridanda Island. Today in the kitchen we are baking cinnamon scones. So let's have fun in the kitchen, shall we? We start with 2 cups of flour. We have in here, I have 1½ tablespoons of sugar, 1½ tablespoons of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon baking soda, 3/4 teaspoon salt. And I have it all ready just to go right in here, just for ease. Mix up the dry ingredients really well. It doesn't take too long with a good mixer, or by hand, just enough. You don't need a mixer to make this recipe. It's helpful, but you can do it the old-fashioned way. I'm sure they didn't have a mixer when the scones were invented. And let me just get a spoon for the butter. I have half a cup of butter. It's already softened. Soften it in the microwave for 10 to 15 seconds, depending on how hard the butter is. I like to use a Cabot butter. It's a nice quality butter, and the better the butter, the better the baking product. All right, we're going to mix this up really well. And the beauty about this recipe is that there's 9 ingredients. It's something that, except for the cinnamon chips, you might just have in your cupboard at all times, so it doesn't require a lot of pre-planning. And you can also, though I like just the plain cinnamon scones, you can add pecans to it. You can switch up the recipe with other ingredients if you like cranberries and almonds, or blueberries or walnuts. You can make your own version of this recipe. Very easy to substitute the ingredients. Okay, I think that's pretty well blended. And just clean off the blade and mix it up a little bit. Okay, at this point I'm going to add in 2/3 cup buttermilk. And I'm also going to add my vanilla at this time too. I add all the wet ingredients at the same time. And vanilla is just to your liking. I always like a lot of vanilla, so I will put a hefty amount in there, but as you please, which is nice about baking. Easy to cater it to your taste. And this recipe will be a little gooey, but firm. And so now it's you can see the kind of texture. It looks a little rubbery. And I'm going to add in 2 cups of the mini cinnamon chips. And you can find them at a nice gourmet store, or you can buy them online. I get mine from nuts.com. Great price, great cinnamon chip. And mix all those ingredients together, and we have a dough that is ready to be chilled for the next step. So what I'll do is just clean off the blade, put some saran wrap over this, put it in the refrigerator, probably or freezer. You can even do it for a quick one, for 15 minutes or so, just enough to chill it, to congeal the dough, and it'll make it easier for rolling it out. Hi, while the dough's been chilling, I've been cleaning up. I've got all the baking stuff away, and cleaned this surface really well, because now we're going to roll out the dough and on this surface here. So you'll see some flour on here now, and I'll just add a little bit more flour and just kind of spread it out a little bit, and grab this nice looking dough here. It's nice and firm, and I have gloves on now because it gets a little gooey if you do it without gloves on. And you're just going to knead this for a little bit, and you're going to start forming it into a tube. mixing the dough up, just kind of squeezing it. Pretend it's pizza dough with chips in it. Okay, I'm gonna roll it up. Now, one thing that you can do with this dough is great to be frozen. So if you ever want to have stuff in the freezer for a quick breakfast, you can freeze it like this, wrap it in saran wrap really tight, and freeze it like this, and then pull it out, and then you can cut it into your scone shapes, or you can cut into the scone shapes and freeze, and then put them in a Ziploc bag. Okay, so here we have a tube, and mind you, thing about baking, it never has to be perfect. And I kind of just reposition the chips, because you want the top of the scone to be a pretty scone. Okay. And what I'll do here is I'll get a big knife. And depending on the size of your tube, you can do usually I would make 8 scones. I think I'm going to do a little bit smaller today. So I'm going to cut this into 5 rectangles. And if I feel like I want to add a few more chips just to make it look pretty on top, I just kind of squish them in. Okay, and then on this point, I just cut them in the triangles. So you take the rectangle and cut a triangle and position them on the cookie sheet. I use parchment paper so it gives a nice texture on the bottom of the scone. You don't have to worry about all that jazz about cleaning it and everything else. Alright, we got scones ready to go in the oven. So I'm going to, now there's another thing you can do here. You can do an egg wash on top of the scone. It gives a nice little golden touch. You don't really need it with this scone. Some scones, you'll notice a difference if you don't have it. But basically you take 1 egg, whip it up with a little bit of water, and then you just brush it on with a pastry brush, and it gives a nice golden touch to the top of it. These, as I said, don't need it as much as other scones, but I did put it in the recipe because it is a nice little tidbit to know, especially if you're switching up the ingredients. Give a little space for everybody to grow. Now we have the cinnamon scones ready to go in the oven, and you're going to be baking them for 15 to 20 minutes depending on the oven at 350 degrees. And halfway through the baking, I'll switch them to position. I have the fresh baked scones out of the oven, and boy do they smell yummy. I wish you could smell them. One way to test any baked product is just to stick a little toothpick or little kebab stick, and if it comes out clean, you're good to go. So it looks like it's ready time to eat the scones. I'm gonna go outside with my cup of coffee at beautiful Overture Dana Island and sit by the pool and enjoy. Bon appetit.